Hey everyone, welcome to Miniature Painting 101, a series of videos where I teach you how to paint miniatures from start to finish. And this is part 13, Varnishes. So first off, what are varnishes? Varnishes are special paints designed to provide a protective layer over your miniature, and they're typically defined by the type of finish on that particular varnish, such as gloss, satin, or matte, which are the three most commonly used varnishes for miniatures. So let's start off with a matte varnish. Matte varnishes provide very little gloss on the miniature. As you can see, it's a very flat covering on this Gene Stealer. Next we have the satin. Now the satin is in between a gloss and a matte. There is a little bit of a sheen or a shine to it, as you can see on this Hammersmith model from War Machine. There is a little bit of shine, but not much compared to the next one, which is the gloss varnish, which provides a very shiny coat to the miniature. As you can see by this Necron Warrior, it is very shiny, and you can see when the light hits it, there's a lot of shine on the miniature. And now, depending on what level of shine you want to do, you can choose a different varnish. Now, why would you want to use a varnish? The obvious answer, number one, protection. If you varnish a model, it will prevent it from damage to the paint job later when you're using in the game or just transporting, such as this chip you can see on this Tiernan model. It wasn't properly varnished and the paint chipped. A second, less often used benefit of using varnishes is a save point. If you apply a varnish properly to a miniature, you can then go over it later with such products such as mineral spirits or white spirits, depending on where you live, and it will remove the coats above the varnish and leave the ones below the varnish safe. Now, to do this though, you've got to have a solid varnish over your model, and it has to cover all the areas. Otherwise, this cleanup may ruin your paint job. And finally, it provides a great surface for the use of shades or glazes, which we just learned about how awesome they can be. However, varnishes aren't for all paint jobs, because you've got to remember that using a varnish will change the properties of your paint job. Therefore, if you spend time creating a really nice, shiny, metallic layer, for example, if you used this liquid gold from Vallejo and then varnished over it, you will essentially remove the essence of the paint, and it will lose a lot of its shine that you spent so long building up. The second problem with using varnishes is a phenomenon that typically is referred to as frosting. Is when you apply too much varnish to a model and it ends up looking like it has a frosted over appearance, and this ends up ruining a lot of the detail, and as well as just giving an older, really worn out look to the areas that you may not want this to happen. Some typical and easy ways to avoid frosting is, number one, to use multiple thin layers of coats of varnish. And another easy way is to just use varnishes that don't typically frost, such as the ones by Vallejo or Miniature, while ones like GW do tend to frost quite easily. So now it's time to apply a varnish to the Space Marine, in which we've been working so hard on in the previous tutorials. Now, I've decided to go with a satin varnish for this particular Space Marine, since it gives the right amount of shine and sheen. So I apply with my airbrush, I put a little bit in my airbrush, and as you can see here, I'm just applying a very quick, light coat of this varnish all over the miniature, since I want to protect all of the armor areas. And I'm trying not to build up too much, because as I mentioned, that can produce a frost if you're using the wrong type of varnish. And then let it dry, give it plenty of time to dry. You don't want to touch it before it's completely dry, otherwise you'll leave fingerprints in the varnish and that will ruin your paint job. And when it's dry, if you want to apply a second layer like I'm doing now, feel free to do so. Apply a second very light layer over all the miniature, and this will protect it, and 2 coats will prevent any of the paint from smearing or chipping and provide a great foundation for any cleanup phase in the future, which I will be covering in a future video. So as you can see, I'm just applying a very quick coat. This is in real time. And when it's dry, you have a really nice satin coat over your miniature. As you can see, it has a bit of shine, but not overpowering amount of shine, such as a gloss coat, and it's not completely dull like a matte coat. And that's why I love the satin coat so well. And that is Varnishes. So thank you very much for watching this part of my Painting 101 series, and stay tuned for part 14, which will be up soon. So till next time, this is Jay saying, happy painting, everyone.